The U.S. resumed its daylight attacks on Iran with a fresh wave on Wednesday, which Trump says aimed to limit Tehran's ability to threaten commercial shipping.
Hungary's former foreign minister Peter Szijjártó has resigned as lawmaker and has taken an executive position with Chinese automaker BYD.
The U.S. launched another wave of attacks targeting Iran on Wednesday in broad daylight after Washington said it would intensify its campaign aimed at limiting Tehran's ability to threaten commercial shipping. Attacks over the last few days have typically occurred overnight, but the U.S. Central Command said it carried out a 90-minute wave of precision airstrikes at midday, acting on orders by the Commander-in-Chief, President Donald Trump. The attacks come despite both countries having signed a memorandum of understanding last month, which included a 60-day ceasefire period. The White House says Iran's Revolutionary Guard violated the deal and attacked at least 7 commercial ships in the strategic Strait of Hormuz, prompting a strong response. Meanwhile, Iran has been retaliating with strikes of its own, targeting U.S. assets and positions in the region, including bases in their Gulf ally countries. Many countries, including Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain, have reported intercepting incoming Iranian fire over the past few days. Iran stressed that its attacks are defensive and warned of major escalations if the U.S. does not reverse course and cease its hostilities.
Hungary's former foreign minister has resigned as lawmaker and has taken an executive position with Chinese electric automaker BYD. Peter Szijjártó announced his move on a social media post on Wednesday. Peter Szijjártó, an ally of nationalist ex-leader Viktor Orbán, wrote on Facebook that he had received a highly prestigious offer from the world's top electric car maker. He will be responsible for the group's external relations and the development of new business lines. Since he lost his position as foreign minister after Orbán and his far-right Fidesz party lost a landslide election in April, Szijjártó had been absent for most parliamentary votes and rarely appeared in public. In 2023, Szijjártó announced that his now employer BYD would open its first European factory in Hungary to skirt European Union import tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles imposed to protect the continent's domestic auto manufacturing sector. As Hungary's Foreign Affairs and Trade Minister, Szijjártó played a central role in talks with BYD on bringing the plant to Hungary.
The European Union and Ukraine have signed a deal to jointly boost the production of drones as European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen made her second visit to Kyiv this year. The new framework is meant to combine the EU's industrial base with Ukraine's extensive expertise in drones gained across more than 4 years of fighting against Russian troops. Drones have become an integral part of modern warfare, which has allowed Kyiv to overcome its manpower disadvantage and launch long-range strikes deep inside Russian territory. Zelensky says his country currently produces 10 million drones a year, a figure he has ambitiously set out to double. Funding for the initiative will come from 2 EU sources, the €90 billion support loan to Ukraine and the roughly $10 billion still available in the Safe Defense program.
This deal will bring together Ukrainian ingenuity and Europe's industrial scale. And with this deal, our message is clear. Now is the time to invest in Ukraine, because this means to invest in Europe and to invest in our common security and our common future.
In her speech announcing the deal, she detailed that Europe can gain from Ukraine's battleground-tested expertise, emphasizing that such a partnership is indispensable to both. The deal also features plans to further boost cooperation between the EU and Ukraine, with the allies penciling plans to explore the production of ballistic and anti-ballistic missiles in the future.
The European Commission has handed out to the United States a list of EU products it wants to see exempted from the 15% tariffs imposed under the Turnberry trade deal last year. The list, seen by Euronews, includes hundreds of products such as Roquefort cheese, olive oil, wines, spirits and beer, pasta, medical devices, electrical equipment and machinery.
We really want to look at as many areas as possible where we can reduce or eliminate tariffs for the benefit of both sides, for the benefit of exporters, for the benefit of consumers, and generally to ensure that we strengthen the EU-US trade and investment relationship.
The list covers around 150 billion euros worth of EU exports. The products concerned are either economically meaningful for the EU or have a limited domestic availability in the US, an EU trade official said. In July 2025, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and US President Donald Trump clinched a deal in Turnberry, Scotland, after weeks of trade disputes. Europeans would pay 15% US tariffs on EU exports while removing their own tariffs on US industrial goods. The European Commission hopes to secure carve-outs and to discuss steel and aluminium, which are still subject to 15% US tariffs. Cypriot Deputy EU Affairs Minister Marilena Rauna has defended the appointment of European Commission Executive Vice President Raffaele Fitto to serve as the EU Commission Special Representative for Cyprus. Authorities of the occupied Cypriot North, which is only recognized by Turkey, fiercely condemned the appointment on Monday. Rauna, however, rejected the criticism.
The Cyprus question is a European question, and reunifying the last divided member state of the European Union will not only be transformative for Cyprus, it will also be transformative for the region of the Eastern Mediterranean, sending a resounding message for peace and stability when we desperately need it.
The Turkish Cypriot leadership alleged the selection was made without obtaining its approval and called it a provocative step that exposes the EU's biased stance regarding Cyprus. Cyprus has been divided since 1974, when a Greek-backed coup triggered a Turkish military intervention that led to its occupation of the island's north. The European Commission announced Fitto's appointment on Monday with the aim to find a lasting solution to the 52-year impasse within the framework established by the UN. The controversy comes at a sensitive time in EU-Turkey relations, with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and European Council President Antonio Costa meeting Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan at the NATO summit in Ankara last week.
Ambassadors of EU countries agreed on Wednesday to extend the temporary protection status granted to Ukrainians fleeing the war until March 2028. However, men aged 23 to 60 are excluded from the scheme. From March 2027, temporary protection will be granted only to those who have fulfilled their military obligations in Ukraine, a move aimed at strengthening Kiev's armed forces in response to requests from the Ukrainian government. Ukraine's martial law prevents most men aged 23 and over from leaving the country, as they are subject to military service obligations. Despite this, some Ukrainian men of draft age have crossed the country's borders illegally and obtained temporary protection in EU countries in recent years. Frontex data show that almost 1,000 people illegally crossed Ukraine's border into the EU this year, and more than 10,000 did so in 2025. Adult men account for 26.6% of Ukrainian refugees in Europe. People who are already benefiting from temporary protection in the EU will not be affected by the change in the rules. Established after Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022, the scheme has allowed Ukrainians to live in EU countries without having to apply for asylum. The British government announced plans for a voluntary overnight social media curfew for 16 and 17-year-olds on Wednesday in its latest effort to reduce online harm among young people. It said that features that can keep users scrolling for longer, such as video that automatically play one after another, will also be switched off by default for older teenagers. The ban will apply to platforms including Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook and X, but not messaging services such as WhatsApp and Signal. The measures are among the final initiatives of Prime Minister Keir Starmer's government and will require legislation before they take effect.
The
The proposals are widely expected to be carried forward by his likely successor, Andy Burnham. Critics question the effectiveness of the measures, arguing that teenagers would simply switch off the default settings. UK Online Safety Minister dismissed the suggestion, saying it was a disservice to teenagers. The NSPCC, the UK's leading children's charity, said the proposals will go some way to improving the experiences of young people on social media, but that they will not be enough on their own.
U.S. President Donald Trump said Immigration and Customs Enforcement, better known as ICE, should continue traffic stops. It comes just one day after the Homeland Security Department said they would be halting them. ICE had been instructed to suspend the traffic stops to detain immigrants after 2 fatal shootings by ICE agents. On Monday morning, one agent fatally shot a motorist in Biddeford in Maine. The 26-year-old Colombian had permission to work in the U.S. The Department of Homeland Security said that its officers had been monitoring the home of a person with a final deportation order, and that when they tried to stop the vehicle leaving the address, the driver attempted to flee. One witness said he heard the victim say he tried to stop. The fatal episode followed another deadly ICE shooting 1 week prior, when plainclothes agents in unmarked vehicles pursued and killed a 52-year-old Mexican man. At least 10 people have been killed during immigration operations since the start of the Trump administration's mass deportation campaign, 4 of them during vehicle stops.